Same order as last time, huh?
I just want to sit on the end.
It won't matter.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm Kevin Vaughn, President of the Wakulla Chamber of Commerce. We're certainly delighted and honored to be hosting this political forum for 2014 and greatly appreciate the candidates' participation and certainly your attendance tonight. We look forward to an exciting evening, an informative evening, and we are going to be videotaping this so those of your friends that were not able to make it tonight in the next couple of days will be able to watch it online. So we will be videotaping. Public service is one of those things that I have great admiration for anyone that has puts themselves up and are willing to serve and go through the process. So I just want to thank all of the candidates tonight for their service and their willingness to serve, and appreciate them being here tonight. So thank you very much. I'd like to introduce Dustin Grubbs, who's going to introduce the moderator team tonight and also work through the rules for tonight's question and answer period. Dustin?
Thank you, Kevin. I get the distinct honor of going through all of our formalities for tonight. As Kevin said, my name is Dustin Grubbs. I am your Chamber Vice President. Joanne Palmer and I will be your moderators for tonight's political forum. Tammy Barfield will be our timekeeper. Petra Schuff is going to do the straw poll. And as outlined in your rules, I think everybody got that in your program. Just to remind you that we're going to try to stay on schedule tonight, even with our later start. And with your cooperation, we'll be able to do that tonight. So at this time, I would ask, if you have your cell phone, please put it on silent, turn it off. Just give a double check. Let's be respectful to the candidates. Make sure we take care of that little housekeeping item. To be certain that everyone understands what will take place over the next couple of hours, I'll briefly recap the rules. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. The order of speakers will be decided by a straw poll, which Petra will do for us. For each question, we'll have another straw poll to decide the order the candidates will answer the question in. The questions were solicited from the citizens of the county. A committee reviewed the questions, deemed them appropriate, and they're going to be drawn at random from our question jar. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer the question. The timer will begin after the question has been asked, which Tammy will moderate for us. There's a visual countdown timer up here in front. It'll give the candidates a warning at 20 seconds and 10 seconds, and then it'll turn red when your time is up. Please keep in mind your time's up when the timer is counted down to 90 seconds, and stop your comments. Joanne, it says moderators will ask you, but Joanne will ask you. We'll be honest here. And she'll just remind you your time's up or ask you to stop. Candidates will be expected to respond to the question asked and remain on topic. Let's please keep this on topic and talk about the question asked, obviously. The question will be repeated after the next candidate's answer, and if you need us to repeat a question for you, just ask us. We'll be happy to repeat it for you. At the conclusion of the question and answer session, the questions will have a 1-minute closing statement, the candidates rather, sorry. We ask that you please hold your applause or reactionary expressions until we've completed the discussion and of the issues between the candidates. Applause between questions will affect our ability to stay on schedule, so if we just applaud when they're all done, we'd appreciate it. If you have any campaign articles or materials other than those that you're wearing, please remove them from the forum. We'd appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions, anything I didn't explain, or anything you'd like any clarification on before we get started?
We're getting an awful echo up here.
I don't think these speakers are on.
Too much feedback, too much reverb.
No sound.
I can't help that one. Well, we won't be talking much other than Joanne being mean to everybody. Okay. It'll beep at you. All right, with that, I would like to thank you all, candidates, for participating tonight. Joanne will go over some introductions, and then we'll get started.
Okay, welcome. Thank you. I'd like to introduce the people that are on the stage here. Running for County Commission seat in District 2, we have Randy Merritt and Taylor Phillips. Candidates for the District 4 seat are Bill Anderson, Steve Cushman, and Jerry Moore. Petra's going to have you draw right now for your opening statement. Each stick has a number. Please tell me the number.
Number 2,
Okay.
number 5, 3, did you get it?
I'm gonna guess what I got.
Guess what you got?
One.
So, okay, so Mr. Merritt will go first.
Ready?
And you got number 4, Mr. Phillips? Okay. We're trying to keep this straight. We're going to have a lot of names and numbers. Okay. Please.
My name is Randy Merritt. For y'all that don't know me, grew up in Wakulla County all my life. I lived in Smith Creek. His dad's a beekeeper. Grew up working the bees out in the National Forest. I went to Wakulla High, graduated, went to Florida State. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in civil engineering. I'm a Gulf War veteran from the Army. I'm a Florida licensed professional engineer and also a Florida licensed contractor, and I've been your commissioner the last 4 years. I tried to be consistent and fair has probably been my main goal on the board, and I don't have a group of followers to follow, and I try to base all my decisions on what's best for the county. And I appreciate you coming tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Moore.
Okay, I'll read my introduction here. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jerry Moore, District 4 Commissioner, and I would basically like to give you a brief update on the state of the county. I think most of you know that I graduated from Auburn University, and I have a pharmacy degree, but I didn't do that very long. Wakulla County today is a different today as daylight and dark as to the time when Randy and I came in office in 2010. In 2010, the county was broke because of the wetland-related lawsuits, and the state was about to take over running of the county. Randy and I hired David Edwards as administrator, and today we have a $2,500,000 reserve and a 5-year budget plan. This year, we received $27 million in grants for infrastructure and a $10 million USDA grant to double the size of our sewer treatment plant. And we now will allow sewer up Spring Creek Highway to connect the homes in Wakulla Gardens, and also to allow both residential and commercial building to continue. Without this grant, our development and our building would have stopped. That's how important it was to us. Commissioner Merritt is the chairman of the Capital Regional Transportation Authority, and as such, Wakulla County is on a fast track for widening 319. But I think the most important development in Wakulla since 2010 was the election of Randy Merritt, Ralph Thomas, Richard Harden, and myself as commissioners. Wakulla County now supports good growth. Wakulla County now supports business, and the old days of having a roadblock at the county line are gone. Wakulla County is now open for business and to reduce taxes. And thank you so very much. And since I got 13 seconds, I'd like to introduce my wife, Virginia Moore, over on the side.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Anderson.
County Commission District 4. I want to use my 40-plus years of experience as a corporate attorney and business person in both large and small corporations and enterprises to work for you, to capitalize on the opportunities that we have and to focus on overcoming the problems that we have in this county. Right now, our economy is stagnant. Our property values have been declining. We have not addressed the maintenance of our infrastructure. We have not prioritized our spending. The County Commission has not held public meetings or hearings on any of these issues to get your input and what should be done about them. I want to focus the government and the private citizens of this county on solving these problems and taking advantage of the opportunities. With my experience both in the corporate world as a businessman and as a lawyer, I read the fine print. I think I can bring an expertise to the commission which is presently missing and move this county forward to solve its problems by focusing on the problems that I mentioned above. With your help in election, I will focus on these problems and commit to do it for your best interest, not my private interest, which I think has happened too often in the past in this county. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips?
Evening, my name is Taylor Phillips, and I ask for your vote for County Commission District 2. I'm running for office because I believe in Wakulla, and I just could not take the status quo any longer. I'm not happy with the way we are all governed, and I ask you, are you happy with the last 4 years? Lived in this county with my wife Pam for a decade, and we believe it is time for us to grab our future and shape it for the best. For the people who live here now, not for some back to the future idea of how to be prosperous based on what's going on in Tallahassee. 30% of our workforce drive 20+ miles to work, and the vast majority of us would rather stay home here in Wakulla County. I've served on boards of multi-million-dollar not-for-profits, nonprofit organizations, and every one of them had a more honest, open, accessible, transparent process than our current county commission. I stand for more public education and input, more transparency, a better process of governing. I'm running for office because I believe we stand on the edge of opportunity. We make the right decisions now. We can boost our economy by bringing in clean, sustainable jobs, by increasing nature-based tourism, retirement opportunities, and by claiming the oyster industry for our county. We have to be wise about it. We can no longer govern by the seat of our pants or the pockets in them that seem to be magically filled to overflowing on our current county commission. I ask for your vote because I stand for the same things you do. Honest and transparent government, participatory democracy that listens to you, local control of our shared resources, an open process that educates the public in integrity. My opponent has made no promises the last time he ran and has pledged no promises again this time. I will make you a promise. I will not get rich on the county's dime. I ask for your vote. Taylor Phillips, County Commission, District 2.
Thank you. Mr. Cushman?
Good evening. My name is Steve Cushman. I moved to Wakulla County about 3 years ago. I'm an avid cave diver. That's why I came here, so I do understand our natural resources, and protecting those is very important to me. What I also am is a father of 3, and I hope a loving husband to my wife Leslie over here, but you can ask her for that. But I really do like this county. You hear all the opponents talking about job creation and the oyster aquaculture industry. I brought the aquaculture industry here right behind Leo Lovell. I'm the one that brought it into this county. I teach it at TCC. But I do more than that. I hit the ground in this county running. I understand our government. And I would like to say thanks to our current county board for getting us out of the hole we were in 2010 back to currently where we are now, which is almost at break even. But we need that extra push. We're still vulnerable. If the economy tanked again, we would be in trouble. We need jobs here. I have a job creation plan. It's on my website at stevecushman.com. But I also sat on the code board. So I'm an outside voice. That's how I got on the code board. I saw our code board heading in a direction I didn't like. I came from Dallas-Fort Worth area. I know what code boards can become to the citizens, and it's not a pretty picture. I also know what big development brings. So I bring an inside voice to a small community trying to grow through economic development. And like Mr. Phillips said, we need jobs here. People are tired of driving to Tallahassee. I'm not going to say like my other opponent, Tallahassee, we're a bedroom community to Tallahassee. If you need something, go up there and get it. Let's bring it here. I have a plan to bring smart industry here, light manufacturing. That's what we have. That's what we can do. That's what we need to bring to this county. When it comes to natural protection of our resources, I'm in the stuff. I'm in the bay every day. I dive in the caves. I just got out of one a few hours ago, so I understand about protection, and that's what I want to bring to this board, is someone that can work with the current board that we have and change this county so that we're all better off. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. It's appropriate to applaud now if you wish. Ted will now do our straw poll for the order of questions.
Number 3. I'm gonna start at that end next time.
Number 2, is that you?
Randy, yes. Mr. Moore, the first question we will ask, at random, you see it coming out of the bucket here. Is that better?
I'm ready.
Okay. Should Wakulla County do more to encourage economic development? And if so, what incentives would you offer businesses to come to Wakulla County?
First of all, you have to create an environment that's friendly to business. And I think we have done this, the current board, in removing as many rules and regulations as we can. I have asked our county people who work for us, when someone calls, that they should always answer, "Welcome to Wakulla County. How may we help you?" It's very important that people coming into town understand that we're here to help them. We're not here to put up roadblocks. And we need to, the Chamber of Commerce and all of us should go out and solicit people who may be coming to town, because there's a huge number of businesses that are right on the edge of coming to town. I talk to them quite a bit, but they need more populations. I had Sonny's here about a month ago, and they submitted their program to their corporate office, and because we didn't have the population, they didn't come. But our economy is going to be based on probably restaurants. It's going to be based on the environment, and we need to do everything we can to make those things attractive. But widening of 319 is very important for us. It makes getting in and out of Tallahassee very easy. But basically, we just need to reach out to the businesses that are going to come here, and there's lots of them that will be here. We just got to be nice and make them welcome.
Thank you.
What was the question?
Should Wakulla County do more to encourage economic development? And if so, what incentives would you offer businesses to come to Wakulla County?
Well, a couple things we have done, I got to say, is keep a stable tax base. I think that's real important for businesses. We've also revised the site plan regulations to make it easier for something like a AutoZone or a McDonald's to come in. It used to be 10,000 square foot of impervious space. Now it's 20,000 square foot of building space, so it takes a lot of the red tape out, and I think that's a good encouragement. We've also come up with the Crawfordville Town Plan future land use designations, what we need to work on some more, which will allow, if you're encouraging pedestrian access and landscaping credits and so forth, you can reuse shared parking, and I think it'll be a game changer. If anybody's seen the Kmart on North Monroe, what it used to be compared to what it is now, that's just a good example. Increasing the capacity of 319, of course, not necessarily only to get back and forth, but to encourage people to come to our county from Georgia and those areas, and I think that would be a big help. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cushman. Should Wakulla County do more to encourage economic development? And if so, what incentives would you offer businesses to come to Wakulla County?
I think Wakulla County has to offer more incentives, and they need to go after big business, or not big business, but businesses that will fit within our footprint to bring economic development to this county. The state offers a series of incentives right now, such as tax credit against your corporate income tax, your sales tax. They're doing some property tax stuff that they have control of, and it's all based on incentives of the percentage they pay over our standard wage. They get a certain amount of credit on their taxes. We can offer that same thing here. The state incentives do not cost us anything. They're free to us. Every county in the state has them. We don't utilize those. We have to start utilizing them. 319 is a #1 priority to be widened right now. It's going to happen. We need to move now, because a big business isn't going to just pack up, move down here, and make that change tomorrow. It takes them time to plan, find a site, work on building. It could be 2 years before we see an industry pop up here, but we need to start now going after them. So we need our own incentives. I drafted a plan, and I've given it to a couple of the commissioners to look at and see if we can get moving in that direction that offers our own incentives. If we have a piece of land right now setting that we collect taxes on, that say it's $100,000 over 10 years, but we waive that, They come in, build $1 million building, and that 11th year, the taxes are far exceeding what we lost in that tax base, not to mention the jobs. 100 jobs in this county puts $4.5 million in if we can pay them $22 an hour. That's what kind of revenue stream we have to get in this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson?
I know what the question is. Thank you. Our economy is depressed, and our property values have been declining. Our younger people in this county have had to leave to find jobs elsewhere. We desperately need to address this issue, but I don't think, as the question says, we can give incentives sufficient to really attract those jobs here. What this county can do is take advantage of its uniqueness to promote itself. In the interim, we can work on small job development in this county by promoting that uniqueness, the uniqueness of our coastline, our natural assets, our resources by the forest, and all of the things that contributes to, such as hunting, fishing, biking, etc., while we work with the state development team to bring additional and larger businesses into this county. To do that, we need to convince them that we have the trained workforce that they can use, that we have good infrastructure that will support their businesses, that we have all of the other things such as easy commutes. We have recreational facilities for their children, their families, if they locate here. Those are the kind of things that our county can do. That will help the existing citizens, and it's what we need to promote to bring larger businesses in and small businesses. I've read Mr. Cushman's economic plan, and I've seen a lot of business plans, and it has many deficiencies. It doesn't even require residency
Mr.
for
Anderson.
the people he wants to give tax incentives to.
Your time's up, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Phillips? Would you like me to repeat the question?
Go ahead.
Should Wakulla County do more to encourage economic development? And if so, what incentives would you offer businesses to come to Wakulla County?
Okay. I serve as a chaplain at Westminster Oaks Retirement Community. That's my day job. So I work for a company, Westminster Services, which currently has 20 retirement communities throughout the state of Florida, has continued to develop even in a depressed economy. What we need to do here, begin with continuing to keep our resources clean, developing clean, strong resources that continue to attract people, not start to attract people, but continue to attract them. Next thing we need is a stable workforce, low and reasonable cost housing nearby that will come to work for folks in a range of capacities. Another one is kind of target marketing, as Chuck and our Tourist Development Council and the Chamber of Commerce advertises on the brochures, 85% undeveloped coastline. Continue to sell that. That attracts people from all over the world. Use the internet resources to reach a target market worldwide. I actually write articles that get published in internet magazines out of Washington, D.C. that reach one specific market, that's the retired population, but there's a range of different markets that come here for a day, an afternoon, all the way to spending their last years living here. We have just barely begun to reach them.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. Petra will now do the straw poll for our second series of questions. We can turn our mic off if you can hear us talk.
I wonder if all of us could move up, because I have difficulty hearing too. It's very hard up
If
here.
you can hear us talk,
I hear you talk.
we can turn this off.
Can everybody back here hear?
Yeah, that'll be good.
We'll move up some anyway. I I can talk loud, but.
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Okay, I'm drawing the second question. And the first person to answer will be Mr. Anderson. If elected or re-elected, what will be your first priority?
My first priority will really be several priorities because I don't think that one is totally overriding of others. But as a commissioner, I believe it's very important for the commission to work together. Right now, we don't have civility on the present commission, and it makes it very difficult for them to accomplish anything. I think it's very important that they work together to accomplish something. So that's one of the first commitments I'll make, is to civility on the commission. I then want to work on the economy, which we just discussed, to attract small business and what we can do. I just mentioned the uniqueness of our county, I think, is very important to that, and having a vision promoting that uniqueness. In addition to the economy, I'd like to see us implement the wetlands ordinance if it's passed by the voters, which I think it should be. And I think there's many reasons for that to promote the uniqueness that I mentioned. This county right now does not stand out from the other counties in Florida. And if they do not pass and put the wetlands issue back on, we're going to be the same as all other counties in Florida, where the state is protecting what is our crown jewels. We need to take those natural resources and promote this county. That is where our economic viability will come in the future. In addition to that, I want to look and see what our problems are and solve each of those problems, which I can identify, but I think the time is about to run out.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Your time is up. Thank you. Mr. Phillips? Would you like for me to repeat the question?
First
Okay.
okay, go ahead.
If elected or re-elected, what will be your first priority?
Thank you. I have a little bit of a different approach to this. My first priority would be workshops, workshops, workshops. I would not have a certain agenda or issue, but invite us all into a process, beginning with changing the actual seating. The way we sit and facing each other, we're set up to be in confrontation with each other. Doing the small group, church, youth group thing, airing out what we believe, what we want, what our visions have been. We have a history of mistrust in this county. We have some built-up mistrust and resentment going back several decades locally. We have a feeling we all kind of share a general frustration with government at each level, all the way to Washington and beyond. Believe me when I tell you, if we begin to open up a conversation with each other, agree on some basic ground rules. Being able to agree on the basic ground rules is part of the process, a bit difficult, and just airing our feelings out and then taking it from there and see where that may lead.
Thank you. Mr. Cushman, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, that's okay. I can tell you right now, elected or not, I'm not going to sit around and wait. I'm kind of tired of us talking about everything and not doing anything. If anybody attended the BOCC meeting last night, you'd know what I was talking about over the development of the RV park in Panacea. We need to stop talking and start doing. I've been doing for the last 3 years. I've introduced oyster aquaculture here, which is promising to be a very big industry for this county. I work with Keep Wakulla County Beautiful to make this a better place, but we have to use what we have right now, and that's our ability from the workers that are unemployed in this county right now, which is thousands of them, to be able to attract big businesses. The incentives from the state, use our employees. Our natural resources are fine. We just spent a $500,000 grant with TDC to promote all of that, and it will take its time and it will fall out and over time, and maybe that will help, maybe it won't, but it won't bring this county back like jobs will. So economic development is my #1 priority. We have to get this county away from the threat of another fall, and we need to do that by creating jobs. It's the only way, other than raising taxes, which I am opposed to, We are about maxed out on taxes. I don't think anyone in this room can stand another tax increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt? Yes, sir. The question is, if elected or re-elected, what will be your first priority?
Well, I won't have a first priority, just to be honest with you. I think as a Board of County Commissioners, it's 5 individuals that are supposed to work together towards the betterment of the county. Now, does that mean I don't have issues I'm concerned about? Absolutely not, but I wouldn't say there's a first priority that I want to go in to look at. Of course, 4-lane and 319 is important. Renewing the 1-cent sales tax is very important to recreation in this county, to long-term growth and stability of all our departments. That would be something to be very important, but as far as a number 1 priority, I just want to keep doing what I've been doing and just listen to the issues, be civil, and make the decision I think is best for the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moore? Yes, sir. If elected or re-elected, what will be your first priority?
Basically, I will continue to work with Wakulla Environmental Institute. They're so terribly important to our county. They will be the number 1, within a 10-year period, they will be the number 1 employment company in our county. They will bring more people from all over the United States and the world to Wakulla County. It's an unbelievable resource that we're sort of like overlooking at this time. So I want to make sure that we do everything we can to help them in coming and bringing people to Wakulla. The second thing I really want to do something for the kids. I've been almost at every board meeting talking about we need a rec park in the north part of the county. Had one almost on Shadeville, had one almost on Martin Luther, but right now we're negotiating with the Forest Service to exchange our Forest Service land for a land that the Forest Service owns across from Walmart, and that's a no-cost exchange. So that's a great place to put a rec park that will bring tournaments and pay expenses for kids who can't afford uniforms. I'm especially interested in artificial reefs off our coast. Our economy is dependent on fishing and outdoors, and the artificial reefs, if we could advertise that in North Georgia, it'd be unbelievable. And I want to pave sewer, and I want to do the sewer.
Thank you,
and
Mr.
paving
Moore. Your
in
time
Wakulla
is up.
Gardens.
Okay, we'll pull for our third question. Randy.
5.
1.
Who got 1? Steve, okay.
Okay. Your next question is, how do you feel about the charter amendment referendum item providing for county commission adoption of debt issuance and management policy? I kind of hacked that up. If you want me to repeat it, I will. You ready? How do you feel about the charter amendment referendum item providing for county commission adoption of a debt issuance and management policy?
Again, that goes back to budget control. We have to be able to manage our money wisely here, so having a policy on debt management is pretty critical to here. That's what happened to us before. We were in a situation where we had one revenue stream for income for this county. When the bubble burst and the housing market crashed, that's all we had. We were struggling over a year period to try to get other revenue sources. That's where your public utility taxes came from. That's where the communication tax come from. It was a diversification of our portfolio to have revenue coming from more than just one source. It's something that was critical to this county. I think we learned the lesson the hard way when we were almost taken over by the state in 2010 because of that. You look at the sheriff's office with the jail bed over there and the fact that they had some money put back because of that program. It's what saved this county. But to have a policy that we follow is better than just trying to make it up as we go along. So I think it's great to have a policy like that.
The question was, how do I feel about it?
How do you feel about the charter amendment referendum item providing for county commission adoption of a debt issuance and management policy?
I mean, I have no problem with it whatsoever. It doesn't say what the policy is. It just says the board shall have one. So there's really nothing to discuss about it. I've already voted for it. It doesn't say this is what your debt policy is. It just says you shall have one. I don't have a problem with that. Thank you.
Mr. Phillips?
You don't have to repeat it, it's okay. When it comes to budgeting, government, actually what comes to mind is a biblical principle, 7 years of famine and then 7 years of increase, that we have a tendency not to think over the long view, long view. So again, a diversity of income stream and budget control, and reasonable budget control. I don't want to get the county boxed into something too tight that you don't have any flexibility with it. So again, depending on thinking the long view and not counting on one thing, we got into trouble with the jail issue, expecting more income over the short term than we actually got. So sticking with having a long view and diversity of income.
Mr. Moore, would you like me to repeat the question?
Basically, it's a very simple solution, is that when you do your budget has to be no more than your income. So you have to manage your debt according to what your income is. If your income decreases, then you have to decrease your budget. You absolutely got to know where your budget is and how much money you're spending. You got to know what your income is. And the board that we have is working that very good. David Edwards is a wonderful administrator in controlling debt, and he understands that you don't spend any more than your income. We have done that very well since 2010. We have brought the county to a $2.5 million reserve fund. We have each of our departments today has its own budget. That's the first time that's ever happened in Wakulla. The sheriff's department, the clerk of the court, everybody has their own budget, and they just can't come to the county and say, well, we need more money. We're controlling that budget very well. So it's very simple. Your debt policy is you don't spend more than your income, and you have to stay on top of it. You can't just let it get out of control. So it's a fairly simple thing.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, would you like for me to repeat the question?
No, I know what it is. Thank you. I went to the different budget workshop, or the Charter Commission's workshops. Brent Thurman, clerk of court, and the CPA for the county that audits the books both recommended that the county do this. It is just guidance. It's not binding on the BOCC. It's just guidance for them, so I'm for it. It'll help control things like Mr. Moore wanted to buy 158 acres for a county park and go in debt. $500,000 was the cost to do that. And that wouldn't include improvements. It was going to be borrowing another $500,000 for a total of $1 million in debt before we would have anything. It'll control that kind of thing. If we're going to do that kind of thing for a park, it would be much better than, rather than buying 158 acres, to have 10 acres spread around the county that are close to the children, close to the subdivisions where they can play, not one mammoth expenditure of debt of $1 million. In addition to that, I want to point out that the BOCC did not have to have the Charter Review Commission when they did. It has to happen every 8 years. This was at a 6-year interval. So they established that as a priority and spent $5,600 for attorney fees for that commission to come up with this guidance policy that you're talking about. I think there are better ways to spend the county's money and the $5,600 rather than accelerating by 2 years when they have to make this consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Petra will now do the straw poll for our next question.
This is question number 4. Just give me a second. We got 4. 1.
I got 4.
5. 3.
Okay. Your question, Mr. Cushman. Describe your views on land use planning and management growth while balancing property rights.
Wetlands question, finally. Basically, like I said in my opening statement, I came here for the natural resources. It's what I love about this county. And there are ways to balance that within our plan for community development without destroying what we have. I mean, you can all look around Wakulla County right now. It always didn't have every building here that it has now. But we've made mistakes throughout the past of development here. Like currently, we have almost 1,300 residential lots that are platted with nothing setting on them, because that's what happened in 2006 when the housing market was screaming down here, and then it fell apart. So they're setting there. But we have those to use. So we need to come in and utilize those before we start trying to build on other places, in my opinion. But we can do the same thing with business. We have the industrial park that was built and platted out, but there's only one business there, CSG, and then the prison's down. I believe there's a wholesale nursery out there, but it can hold more than what it has right now. So looking at economic development versus natural resources, my campaign slogan is balance for a better tomorrow. We have the ability to find that balance if we work together without all the bickering on the board, without issues like the wetlands and property rights. It's not about property rights to me anymore, and it's not about protecting our wetlands. It's become about government control on private people's policies. You even heard Kessler in last month's BLCC say private property, private trees. It applies when you're nailing signs in trees, but it doesn't for wetlands.
Thank you, Mr. Cushman. Your time is up. Mr. Moore? Shall we repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Describe your views on land use planning and managing growth while balancing property rights.
Property rights, you cannot take somebody's property. The Constitution says that the property is owned by you and you cannot take it without paying them for it. We just, prior to 210, there was a Wakulla buffer on a state, a Wakulla wetlands buffer on a state wetlands buffer. This board decided that that wasn't something that would be good for, and we have removed that and sent that back to Tallahassee to take care of. But you just cannot, Wakulla County is so short on property that we can use. When you take the state forest, the St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge, the Apalachicola National Forest, we're getting down to just 15, 25, 30% of land. FEMA now has expanded their boundary, which probably almost doubled their boundary as to where your insurance comes in. They're no longer, the people in Georgia and Alabama are no longer going to subsidize the people who choose to live in Florida. So FEMA is going to raise those insurance rates. They were able to get it delayed, and they're going to step it. But when those insurance rates start hitting us down here, it's going to be unbelievable. People are going to be crying foul. And nobody will build a subdivision on stilts. That just will not happen. So we just have to.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Your time is up. Mr. Phillips?
We have fallen into a debate in this county over private property, but we need to recognize the other end of the spectrum, shared resource. In our county, we need both. Private property, one end of the spectrum, shared resources, such as clean water at the other end. I believe in private property rights. Private property is the basis for wealth for most American families. But all property comes with some kind of zoning and easements or other restrictions. Normally, you don't have a factory next door to your house. You don't want one. These contingencies protect your property rights and values, and some contingencies protect shared resources as well. You're required to have a sanitary health department approved way to dispose of your toilet waste. And we'd be going back to the Middle Ages, dumping it onto the street. These contingencies protect shared resources, public health, and in this case, property values. I believe in wetland buffers so that they protect a shared resource clean water, as well as our property values. We must protect our waters for their environmental and economic value. Oyster industry requires the highest standard of water quality for shellfish harvesting. Beaches have to stay open and fishing stay great for our ecotourism, recreation, and retirement industries. So there's a balance between the two that's not being shared in the current discussion when we talk about property rights only. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Mr. Anderson?
As I heard the question, I don't really think it's a wetlands question, so I'm not going to address that except tangentially. But starting off, what the county has is a comprehensive plan as to how all the land in the county can be developed and what should be developed and what shouldn't, with what type. Should it be an apartment, should it be a commercial center, etc. What I see frequently happens, and it happens very often in front of the commission, that a matter comes from the Planning and Zoning Commission and there's a staff recommendation before it went to the Planning and Zoning, and the Planning and Zoning Commission makes a decision as to what should happen, and then it gets to the BOCC. They ignore pretty much what the staff has recommended, what the Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended, and they determine it as a de novo issue. They decide it all over again without considering those recommendations. I would give far more deference to the experts and the other people they've appointed as to what they should do. When each of us buy a piece of property, at the bottom of the deed, it says you take it subject to all restrictions and easements of records. That's all zoning requirements. That's your subdivision restrictions. That's your setback lines. And if there's a wetland ordinance, that's your wetland ordinance too. That controls how the property can and should be used, and we need to make sure that each of our citizens abide by that. Property rights should not override that. When you took your deed, it was subject to all restrictions and easements of records.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Your time is up. Thank you. Mr. Merritt? Describe your views on land use planning and managing growth while balancing property rights.
Sounds like your question has something to do with land use planning and growth, which is we have zoning in the county, and as Bill said, we have a future land use, and it's kind of complicated. You can have certain zonings and certain future land uses. And like I mentioned earlier, the Crawfordville Town Plan, those were all future land use designations that the county adopted. And I said we need the zonings on top of that. Now, do I think you should have unfettered right to use your property for anything you want? No. That's the purpose of zoning, is protect your use of your property from someone infringing on your peaceful use of your property and your value from doing something close to you that is not compatible. That's called zoning. We have that, and that evolves over time, and he's exactly right. Individual pieces come back, they're changed, the county's growing. It's not the same as it used to be, so that's what we have our planning department for, and I guess that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Petra will draw for question number 5.
Mr. Merritt, your question is, what would be your position in issuing levies and taxes as they would pertain to capital improvement projects?
All right, say that again.
What would be your position in issuing levies and taxes as they would pertain to capital improvement projects?
I would support levying any new taxes, but as I mentioned earlier, I do definitely support renewal of the 1 cent sales tax, which is exactly what that's for, is capital improvements. We really don't use any of our ad valorem taxes for capital improvements. They're supposed to be used for maintenance and stuff like that. Capital improvements are buildings, vehicles, stuff like that. So I support renewal of the 1 cent sales tax to use for capital improvements, but I don't think I would support a new tax for any sort of capital improvement. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, because I didn't hear it clearly.
What would be your position in issuing levies and taxes as they would pertain to capital improvement projects?
Well, I would not be in favor of issuing a new tax for capital improvements. I think we ought to be able to prioritize our present revenue stream so that we take care of the capital needs that we have without adding a new tax. As Randy mentioned, the 1% sales tax goes to many of the capital improvements, road paving, et cetera, and structures. But I think before we add new structures, there are structures in this county that are not presently utilized for everything they could be. This community center being one, there's some other vacant property, et cetera. So I think we ought to look very carefully before we add any new tax for capital projects. I do think that the county has underspent on things like the infrastructure in this county. And as we consider the budget going forward from year to year, we need to take care of our infrastructure, and to the extent that's capital improvements, we need to allocate and prioritize the revenue stream we have to those capital improvements, so that when we talk about the economy and we're talking about attracting businesses, we're not going to be able to do that if our infrastructure is breaking down, if our roads, our sewers, et cetera, are not maintained. Those things are very important. And we have the money, the income stream, I think, with the present taxation, if we prioritize that spending. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. As I stated before, I'm highly against any more increase in taxes. Like Randy said, I'm not opposed to maintaining where we're at right now because we just do not have the revenue stream to go above that. We do have surplus now that we haven't had for a while, so there is that $2.5 million that's in the reserves to help out with some of that if we needed it. But it's like like Randy said, the road graders, the vehicles, the buildings, if they start falling apart, we have to replace them. So we need to have a source to be able to do that. You look back on economic development, if we can get that going on, we get businesses in, those will help fund things. The community center was mentioned. This place is being utilized. It's not being utilized to its full capacity because it lacks funding. That's why I have pledged to Sarah Daw I will give 1/3 of my salary to this center if I'm elected to help it get on its feet. That's what it takes. That's what it takes in this community. It takes support from every citizen in this community to make a small community like this go. That's why I sat on the board to keep Wakulla County Beautiful as its president, to help it go along and provide projects like the current landscape that just occurred over at the administration building. County can't afford that. We don't have the money. It takes volunteers to do that. And that's why I'm willing to step up and do that, so that we don't have to raise taxes and we can keep moving forward down the road without having to do that. But right now, we just need to remain stable and look into the future of how can we start reducing some of those taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Moore?
Do that one more time without your mic.
What would be your position in issuing levies and taxes as they would pertain to capital improvement projects?
I would continue the 1% sales tax that we have now, because that 1% keeps the county from putting that 1% over into your ad valorem tax. So that'll come up in 2016, so I would support that. Anybody who's watched the county commission meetings knows that I will not vote for any taxes, just period. If there's a tax that comes up, I will not vote for it. We have not had to do that. Basically, at this time, we have reduced our expenses in government. We have a 5-year plan. We have a 5-year plan that is accommodating for almost everything. It's accommodating for new vehicles, new road graders, updating our air conditioners, the first time we've ever done that. But the primary thing is to keep your taxes low. You have to have more or less a debt policy. You cannot spend more than you take in. We have a, you just have to be on guard for that all the time. And county government is extremely expensive. And just over at one of our buildings, we had a $300 cost because there was some underground problems with, I think, a previous gas tank or something. But that cost us $300,000. So there's all kinds of things that come up that are not expected. But you just got to stay on budget. But I will not vote for any taxes. I will.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Phillips, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Would you like for me to repeat the question?
Go ahead.
What would be your position in issuing levies and taxes as they would pertain to capital improvement projects?
I would begin by looking for other revenue sources such as grants, well into program recovering or applying for and receiving grants for a range of capital improvements. Next step would be looking at, as we want, stimulating economic growth. And the next step would be considering what needs to be funded through taxes. I'm not opposed to raising taxes. I'm opposed to the hidden process by which we come about deciding on what the taxes will be. So an open, honest discussion with the population, with the public, saying we can have this, but we're going to have to pay for it this way, and airing out trust or mistrust of the departments asking for what they want. That's an airing out and an opening toward deciding what we will or will not pay for.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, audience and candidates. This has been an informative first half, and we'd like to offer the audience a chance to stand up and stretch your legs and just take 5 minutes, and then please be back in your seats. Thank you. Okay, here we go. How do you feel about the charter amendment referendum item providing for county commission adoption of a management policy for budget fund balances?
We already went over that.
Okay. How do you feel about the charter amendment referendum item providing for county commission adoption of a management policy for budget fund balances?
I'm okay with a policy on budget fund balancing. I think we've done fairly well, and that's kind of evidenced by the amount of reserves we have right now. But again, it's one of those where having a plan on everything we do works out a lot better than just trying to make it up as we go or depending on one person to do it, like the county administrator. If we have a plan, we kind of know what's coming, and we can adjust accordingly from that plan if things come up like it did in 2008 when the bubble burst and the house crisis came. So I think having a plan on everything is always a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. And may I remind the audience that we can hear you when you're talking, and so if you have some comments, will you keep it to yourself until the candidate has had a chance to answer the question? And we appreciate the candidate's answers. Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
How do you feel about the charter amendment referendum item providing for county commission adoption of a management policy for budget fund balances?
This is very similar to the earlier one on the debt policy. Both of them are just guidance. They're not binding on the BOCC. But prior to 2011, this county got in serious financial trouble where they were unable almost to meet their bills, and the state may have to come down and take over. And so having this kind of policy, which is guidance, can hopefully help us from getting in that situation by not overspending, by controlling and prioritizing the spending we do in our budget against the revenue stream that's coming in. They anticipated back before 2011, when the property values went down, that same ad valorem tax would continue to fund the government. It didn't, and they had to reach out and put in the utility tax, a communication tax, etc. Hopefully this kind of budget policy will allow us to have budgets where we can adapt as the situation changes. So if we have revenue shortfalls or it looks like it's heading in that direction, we can adjust the expenses the same way. I favor the guidance policy. Again, it's not binding on the BOCC, but I think it's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips?
Generally speaking, I'm okay with management fund balances. Generally, when something comes up, it's responding to a situation that has developed, so people are trying to figure out a way to fix it. In conversations with David Edwards, if I understand this correctly, this might be a parallel to it. He was mentioning to me one time, just conversationally, you don't want to take, borrow from one to fund another. You get into trouble from one department to another. And I said, in church world, that's called robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's the general idea, maintaining balances of funds, keep it all balanced, not to get locked into it, but that's the general idea. So, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Moore?
Basically, I support that. You have to, in your budget, you absolutely have to know your income and you have to know your expenses. And you have to have a plan on how you're spending your money. And it can't be just a 30-day plan. We now have a 5-year budget plan. So we know what our projected expenses are going to be. We don't know what our projected revenues are going to be. We can anticipate that. But you got to know how much your expenditures are, and then you got to know how much you're spending, and you got to know that all the time. Each of our departments now, with the exception of the school board, and they're not our department, but each of our departments now have their own budget, and they're responsible for that. And I said that earlier. They cannot come to the county and say, anymore they cannot come to the county and say, we're out of money. We need 100 grand. We need 100,000 for this. They just can't do that anymore. We have a delicate problem with the ICE inmates. We were running about 80 earlier. I think we're probably up to 100 now. But in the ICE situation, the revenue from ICE supports the county budget. If we were to lose ICE, we lose about $1.5 million of our county budget, and we would have to make that up somewhere. So it's a delicate deal that we've got, and we have to watch over it very closely.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Merritt?
My answer is going to be the same as the last similar question. No problem with it whatsoever. It's guidance. It's not a hard and fast policy. And in fact, if anything, it's redundant because the county does have a reserve policy right now. We've had it for a year or two. Every department, like Jerry said, has their own budget. Every department has a target fund balance, and there's a 5-year plan to reach that fund balance. We're very close with the general fund, but the fine and forfeiture fund, which is the sheriff's department, is a long ways off. Their target reserve fund is a couple $1 million short of where it needs to be, at least several $1 million short of where it needs to be. So we already have that policy in place, so therefore I have absolutely no problem being on the charter referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. Petra?
This method was the question I asked.
Yes, that's true.
Totally misunderstood. I just want to make sure the same person didn't go first for every question. 2, 1. All right. You answer.
I was fine.
I got you. Thank you.
Give us something like what's your favorite color.
Mr. Phillips, your next question is, what is your position on the county beginning to explore creation? Yeah, we're going to... Okay, sorry. What is your position on the county beginning to explore creating an adoption center for animals?
Okay, now, seriously, restate the question, please.
What is your position on the county beginning to explore creating an adoption center for animals?
Okay, I don't have a position on it. I see that there is a need for it. I do not understand, and reading the newspaper and hearing different opinions, something happened to Chat. Chat seemed to be responding to the need and seemed to be carrying along for 20 years. And then I've heard different sides of the story as to how the county presented them with a budget increase and they were not able to continue. So obviously that need is carrying on. It does not sound as if the current setup is going to fund the response to the demand for taking care of animals well enough. It sounds as if the current proposal is seriously underfunded, and I think we're all going to see the effects of it, and we kind of already are seeing the effects. When you leave the Chinese restaurant and there's 6 or 7 cats right there, we've got a ways to go. So I'm hopeful that adoption as one of the responses is a part of it. Thank you.
If I can.
Great.
What is your position on the county beginning to explore creating an adoption center for animals?
This came out under our budget hearings. I don't have a problem with what the county administrator and Ivanhoe are wanting to do. Ivanhoe at the animal shelter, of course. They're wanting to do a trial adoption center for the county. By doing that, it allows the county to be eligible for grants to do things like rehab the animal control building and stuff like that, because they said one of the big questions that they're asked whenever they do a grant application is, do you provide adoption services? In the past, the counties had to say no. So now, and I don't know if they had to say that with Chat, but anyway, Chat is no longer there. So now if the county gets into it, they can check yes on that box. The amount of money budgeted, David is looking at from a very business-like stance. If it has a negative 25% margin, in other words, if it's losing 25% of the money that the county's putting into it, then he's going to bring it back to the board and say, what do you guys want to do? This is not a money pit, but they think they can make it work, and I'm going to put my trust in the animal control staff out there, Ivanhoe and her staff, and let them give it a shot. Thank you.
Mr. Cushman, would you like me to repeat the question?
Thank you. I happen to be heavily involved with Chat. I spent all day Saturday washing dogs over there. I think I washed about 40. So I know quite a bit about Chat. I've talked to David and I've talked to people on Chat about it. I think we had a very good program and a very good organization with Chat. They were basically funding themselves and self-sustainable. The county was only liable for paying the utilities on the building. That was it. And then there were some issues with maintenance on the building that needed to come up. So now we're going to throw $10,000 at trying to start a program we already had when we should have just stuck with the one we have that's already proven. I have 4 animals, and 2 of them were adopted by Chat, and I worked with Petra and Janice and all of those to keep Chat running. I think it was a good program. I think it's a mistake for the county to spend $10,000 when we're already in a budget issue that we're trying to overcome on an experimental program when we had a good one already in existence. Thank you.
That's okay. If we could take Randy's answer and put it into my words, I support pretty much what Randy just said. Basically, we hired an administrator to make decisions for us, and those include financial decisions. As there's an old saying that I don't have a dog in that fight. I don't know whether one will be better than the other, but we have the option of trying a new method. We may have to upfront $10,000. That's a lot of money. Other people could use that money, but it gives us a chance to look at an option. So I support my administrator because that's what he's hired to do. And I don't think he had any alternative motive. I think he was just looking at the best for the county. And when you're working with people's animals, it's probably more delicate than working with their children. My daughter's a vet. She went to see a man she went to a house one night with a dog that was really in bad shape, and the wife, with a husband in bad shape. And the wife said, "Don't worry about the husband, treat my dog." So animals are very delicate, but I still support my administrator on that.
Thank you. Would you like me to repeat the question, Mr. Anderson?
No, thank you. I understand what it is. I also was at the dog wash and volunteered my time last Saturday to do that. I think when Chad was, if you want to call it, dismissed from the county facility, there's kind of a controversy about how that happened if you talk to different people. And so I think it's important when the county takes any action that it's very clear for the reasons that it's taking those actions and that people understand. I'm for euthanizing as few animals as possible at our center and having as many of them as adopted as possible while providing good services and humane treatment for our animals. I was at the county commission where they talked about this experiment, and the county is putting forth 10,000, maybe a little more, for when this experiment happens. But David Edwards, the county administrator, was saying, or was asked, what are the criteria for this program? How will we know at the end of the time period if it's a success, a failure, if we want to continue it? And he didn't have guidelines for how we will make that determination. I know from business, when you do something on a test basis, you better establish in advance how you're going to determine at the end of that period whether it's a success or failure, or you won't be able to reach a conclusion. So while we're in this experiment, I would set up at the very beginning the criteria for it. I would like to continue the humane treatment of animals, either with Chat or our own adopted facility.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Okay, this one will go to Mr. Anderson first. What is your understanding and position on a mobility tax?
I heard it discussed, and I'm not an expert on this, but it's my understanding that we would, this proposed tax would be for as people move and use the roads, if you have a business, et cetera, and you're going to have certain number of employees or trucks, et cetera, there would be a mobility tax put on them in that way. And it was stated, Louis Cerna, when he brought this up at the commission, said he didn't really have a good background on how this tax would be handled also, or exactly what it was. So before I would want to see this or any other tax considered, I would like to see a public hearing on it. I would like to see a clear explanation of what it would be, who it would affect, and how it would affect, and whether that tax would be incremental to the other taxes we have, or whether it would substitute for one of the other taxes we have. So that's how I would approach this or any other tax issue, but generally I'm not for any additional taxes, and if it's a substitute for a present tax, I'd want to know exactly how it was going to work, et cetera, before I implemented it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt? Sure. What's your understanding and position on a mobility tax?
A mobility tax is a substitute for traffic concurrency for new development. Right now, if you are a new, say you're a AutoZone and you want to build in Wakulla County, you have to go do a traffic study, and with the level of service on our roads, a lot of times you got to pay expensive consultants to justify to be able to meet concurrency. Concurrency is a planning tool to not overload the roads. One way you can get around that concurrency, especially with our level of service on our roads bad as it is you implement a mobility tax, a fee. I wouldn't even call it a tax. So if you're generating X number of trips from your new business, you pay into this pot that it's used for traffic improvements. It's not anything that existing residents pay. It's more like an impact fee than anything else. I'm 100% for it. I'd much rather see somebody pay a mobility tax or mobility fee from a business instead of paying an engineer consultant, which I'm an engineer, I hate to say that, but I'd much rather see that going to the county coffers than to a consultant. So I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips?
I'll tell you the truth that this is not my area of expertise, but just keep it general that paying for, putting back into so that your business can flourish and grow would be generally the fair thing to do. Have to be careful with it because you are also trying to attract businesses, so it's tricky trade-off there.
Thank you. Mr. Cushman? Do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I think I have it. I can tell you my understanding on mobility tax versus what Randy talked about, which was an engineering study. When I brought the business here that I opened up, I was told when I went to file for my permits that I had to do an engineering study. And after about a couple dozen phone calls trying to find out how you were able to accomplish that, it was a very discouraging experience for me. So I would be open to having something that was less than a $13,000 study I was told I had to pay for a small business. Something more along the lines, I think Randy Merritt's talked about it in the VOCC meeting about just a simple fee that we charge to kind of compensate for that. But then again, you look back on it, the roads belong to every citizen in this county. We all use them. They don't belong to us, but we use them. It's what we all, and I think we all ought to bear the burden for some of those repairs and some of that maintenance that has to occur on them, because we all do drive on them. You know, maybe one business brings a little bit more than the other, but we have to look at the business too. If we're going to have 18-wheel trucks moving in and out of here a lot, that's a lot of wear and tear on our roads. But right now, we don't have that. But down in the future, it goes back to that planning. Maybe it's something we need to look at in the future, but I would support something better than the $13,000 I was told I needed just to get my building certificate of occupancy over, you know, a smaller fee that everybody would pay. It's a simpler way to go about it.
Thank you. Mr. Moore?
Small business cannot afford $13,000. They can barely go into business with the money they have. If you put a tax on small business, then the only thing you're going to have in your county is large business, because today a small business person cannot buy the land and build his business, buy his inventory, and go into business. It is virtually impossible. Almost all small businesses today have to rent their property. But if you add the tax to them, it's just so many small businesses cannot go in business. They've got a good idea, they could create jobs and pay taxes. But if we keep adding taxes, it's just one little tax, another little tax, and then one other little tax. And the first thing you know, you've got a big tax. So what you do is you make everything friendly to business. You make it inviting. You create an atmosphere that's friendly to business. But you don't tax them.
Thank you.
No. We'll do one more question. Petra's real excited about it. We will conclude the night with a very interesting question, which I think everyone will find informative. Mr. Anderson, why are you running for county commissioner? Oh, Mr. Phillips, my apologies. Same question to you, sir. Why are you running for county commissioner?
Hard to reach my closing statement, which is kind of the same thing. All right, I am running for county commissioner because I believe in Wakulla County. I believe in our natural resources. I believe in the beauty of this land. I believe in the people. I've had a good time getting started some of the soccer teams in this area, this wonderful community center. I grew up in Atlanta and would come to Wakulla Springs since I was a child. I've seen this county decline. I believe we can do better in recovering and rebuilding trust and faith among us all. I believe in protection of the wetlands. I'm opposed to the realignment of Highway 319. I'm opposed to the sort of what I call hidden taxes and fees, like the public service tax. But beyond those specific issues, what I particularly believe that I can bring to the discussion is a way of going about the process of discussing among each other, rebuilding trust, which is hard and slow, but my skills as a mediator and a minister and background in psychology all bring to bear into bringing positive energy back out again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt. Yes, sir, I can. Why are you running for county commissioner
Well,
again?
I probably should answer because I ain't got my head screwed on right, but really just to continue, I ran for this before because I watched past boards. I've been around the county commission for years and years, and I've seen some really crazy decisions made. And I just wanted to bring my experience, with the public works and just historical perspective on a lot of issues to the board. I don't get anything out of this other than the salary I'm paid. I don't have any financial gain. In fact, one of the main decisions that I pushed for was revising the septic tank regulations to make more sense and apply to the Springs Basin. I lost money on that. I made $300 for every one of those engineered systems and I did 90% of them in the county. So I made a decision that I thought was best for the county, and it came out of my own pocketbook. So why am I running? I want to represent the citizens. I think I do a good job, and I want to continue to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Anderson, I jumped the gun earlier. I'm sorry.
I'm running for the county commission because I bought property here in the year 2000. I retired from the position that I had 3 years ago, and I've had, over the time period that I've been here, an opportunity to observe our county government and how the BOCC operates. And I think it's been very short-sighted in the way it's addressed problems. I do not think it has taken advantage of the opportunities that this county has to advance. That's the reason our economy is stagnant. That's the reason that our property values are not increasing as the surrounding counties are. I think we need to seize the opportunity and say that Wakulla County is very unique because of its natural resources, and that's what we need to promote and capitalize on, and that'll move this economy forward. In addition to that, I've seen decisions made without public input, without public hearings on the issue, and I don't think that produces the best results. So I would like to, if I am elected, to have open meetings, to get your input, to bring the government leaders and civic leaders together and establish a vision for this county that'll move it forward, that'll improve its economy, that'll increase our property values, that'll bring jobs so people don't have to leave this county to get jobs. That is the reason that I'm running. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cushman, do I need to repeat the question?
No, it's okay.
Right.
Like I said in my introduction, I hit the road here, or the ground here 3 years ago. Keep Wakulla County beautiful, the Marine Advisory Committee, the Code Board. I'm the chairman of the Aquatic Science Association that does karst research here. I just don't think I have enough to do, so I'm looking for something else. Actually, the reason I'm running is I got involved with the Code Board 2 years ago, and I discussed that a little bit earlier, but I feel like I bring an outside view into this county. I grew up in a small town, or a small county like this, moved to a big county up by Dallas, Fort Worth in Texas. So I've seen big growth and development, and I've seen it get out of control. I would never want to see Wakulla go to that, so I feel like I can bring experience from both of the worlds I grew up in into this county, and through all the volunteer efforts I've done, it's kind of given me an insight to how this county works and how it's managed. I've spent time at the Sheriff's Department, at the fire departments, at the BOCC meetings with David Edwards, with Cherie Keeler, everyone out there to understand and gain the experiences of how this county needs to function. I think I bring that to the board. I think I can bring balance to the board and stop some of the bickering back and forth that you see at every meeting go on. And maybe we can move this county forward with responsible progressive development so that we don't fall behind like every other county out there where we're not able to keep up with population growth and we have our people that don't have homes or starving to death. I don't want to see that. That's not the kind of person I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moore.
You want to repeat that?
Yes, sir, I would love to. Why are you running for county commissioner?
Basically, first of all, I want to reduce taxes. I want to get the cost of government off of the people who are paying for the cost of government. And you can do that by reducing taxes. And you want to make sure that your government is run efficiently. That, here again, that you got a budget and you adhere to the budget. And we've done that by having each department have its own budget. But I also wanted to reduce the rules and regulations, because when a small business comes into town, they have a bucket full of rules and regulations that they have to go. Some of them are necessary, but a lot of them are not, because you have one little rule. It's just like budget. You have one little rule, you have another little rule, you have another rule, and the first thing you know, you got a whole book of rules. We have books like that in our departments of nothing but rules. I mean, our people who who help us. You ask them some questions and they have to go to the rule book. They don't even know all the rules. It'd be impossible. But I just want to get the government off the backs of the people who pay the cost, because businesses pay the cost of government, and we need to solicit business and be kind to business. We need to be kind to the people who want to come here and do business. We need to make sure that they feel welcome, and we need to remove any roadblocks that prevent them from coming here.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our question and answer session. We'll have one more straw poll, everyone's favorite event of the evening. This is your last time to witness it. For the order that we will do our closing statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute for your closing statement.
4, 3,
16, no, 5,
And 1. I thought you said the same person couldn't go first all the time.
try to arrange that.
You'll have 1 minute, Mr. Cushman.
Okay. I want to thank everyone for coming out. I know it's low turnout again, like the last one was, but at least you guys are willing to come out and get informed about who we are and why we're running. I hope I've kind of given you some insight into who I am. Like I said, I moved here 3 years ago. I fell in love with this county. It's the first time in 36 years of traveling around this country and the things that I've done that I feel like I'm back at home with what I had as I was a child. So I really like this county. I support it by all the things I do. You can go on my website at stevecushman.com and you can read about all the things I do. There's pictures on there about what I've done since I've been here, and I want to keep that up. So going on to the board will allow me to get a little bit more involved with government over what I am with the code board, which if I'm elected I'll have to resign from, but I want to be able to bring my experience onto the code board and bring balance to this county so that we can move forward in a responsible, progressive way with our development. I appreciate everyone coming out again tonight, and I look forward to the election. And again, I ask you for your vote if you feel like I'm the candidate you need on that board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt?
I want to thank everybody for coming, a lot of familiar faces here, and I'd like to continue doing my job. Just briefly with Taylor, he probably heard stories about me and thought I was some sort of monster. I didn't know anything about him, but I can genuinely say this is a really good guy. I mean, he really is. He's down to earth, and I know should be bragging on my opponent, but he really is. He's a nice guy. And, you don't have to be adversarial to run for this office. I think a lot of people shy away from that because they don't want to be drug into having to be against somebody. You don't have to do that. I didn't do it last time, and I'm not going to do it this time. We leave. Taylor will be my friend, and thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson?
This election, in essence, is about you assessing each candidate's ability, credibility, and experience, and making a decision about who best can lead this county. If you keep electing the same people, you will get the same result, and this county will remain stagnant with a depressed economy and lack of vision to lead us forward. I have a strong educational background and over 40 years of experience in law and business at the highest level to apply to our county's opportunities and problems. I have a history of credibility in what I say, and I will conduct all county business in the open for your benefit, not my personal benefit. Wakulla County's uniqueness can be a huge opportunity for our prosperity with good leadership and a plan on how to capitalize on it. I have the ability, credibility, and experience to lead this county in a better direction, and I ask for your vote on November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips?
I would like to begin by echoing what's been said about thanking everybody for coming out tonight and encouraging your friends and people that you know to participate in the process. It's not easy, and the low participation is scary to me. In this election, we have a clear choice about the future of Wakulla. The past 4 years, have you been happy with the way your commissioners have listened to you? Or are you, on occasion, as I am, appalled when sitting commissioners make statements such as, "I'm not giving in to that crowd," or referring to residents of the county as cave people in the newspaper? Are you occasionally disturbed by what you see and hear? Are you sometimes enraged by the taxes favoring the wealthy and resting a hardship on on the poor folks? I stand for local control of our resources, integrity, and I ask for your vote. Taylor Phillips, County Commission.
Thank you,
District 2.
Mr. Phillips. Mr. Moore?
I grew up in a small town in the mountains of North Carolina with country people, pretty much like we have here in Wakulla. I am proud to serve the people in Wakulla. I feel real close to them. I tend to think that Crawfordville is the same thing as my town is. I call Crawfordville as Hayesville South because it's just a great place to live. The people are good, and I've always wanted to be involved in decisions that affect people. And so many times in my career I had to sit there and watch government put taxes on because they were not efficient in their government. I think we're very efficient in this government down here, and of course I started from day one that I would not vote for any taxes because we needed to be more efficient. And at this time we are efficient. We have a very tight budget. But this is just a great place to live, and I just love the people of Wakulla County.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Kevin? Six minutes.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank the candidates. Let's give them a round of applause for their participation tonight. Very informative. We appreciate you guys coming out tonight and sharing with us. I'd also like to give special thanks to our moderator team here, including Chuck, Petra, Tammy, Dustin, and Joanne. Thank you very much. And be sure and get the word out about the recording. It has been recorded tonight, so it'll be available in the next couple of days. Chuck has graciously agreed to get that up for us, so we want to get this information out to as many folks as possible. Also, I'd like to thank our Chamber Board and our co-host of Wakulla News for tonight's political forum. Certainly the One Stop Community Center for the space. And refreshments were provided tonight by Rotary Club of Wakulla and Keep Wakulla County Beautiful. So we appreciate their support as well. And I want to thank all of you as citizens, your interest tonight and your participation, your questions. We urge you to get out there and be sure and remember to vote November 4th. So thank you for coming tonight. And the refreshments are in the back if you guys got to hang around and maybe talk to the candidates individually. Have a good night. Thanks. Thank you, sir.